Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we discuss the Carolina Panthers have hired a new head coach and a GM. Why are we talking about the Carolina Panthers? Well, they had their introductory press conference earlier this week, and their GM made some very bold, strange, odd, you can maybe say dumb quotes. So we're going to go ahead and I'll show you this article here from the local, North Carolina, Charlotte area that kind of like gives us a few, key quotes. It doesn't give us a full transcript of the, press conference, but there's a few quotes in here and we're just going to kind of read all of them. I'll skim some of this stuff and then we'll kind of talk about all of it afterwards and what it all means or what my interpretation of it is. And maybe it's not the best thing for the Carolina Panthers right now. So you can see Carolina Panthers introduced new head coach and GM. Carolina Panthers are ushering a new era of football into the Queen City. Did you guys know Charlotte was called the Queen City? I think that's what that's referring to. I never heard of that before. On Thursday, the team introduced Dave Canales as the new head coach of the team and Dan Morgan as the president of football ops and the general manager. Canales becomes the third head coach in the past 5 seasons for the Panthers. I assume that's not counting interims. And just a little bit of a background on Canales here. He was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay this previous year. Helped Baker Mayfield have a career year, helped the Bucs win a playoff game in the division. Before he was at Tampa, he was with the Seahawks under, Pete Carroll. And I also think Morgan also had a lot of Seattle ties there too. So that's kind of how they were able to kind of get this bond and, kind of say, hey, you're kind of taking a little bit of notes from that Seahawks tree. But here's the quote here from the GM guys. And this is where we start to get a little cringe. When teams drive up to the stadium, we want them to fear that logo. The logo has to be feared again because right now it's not feared. So we got to get back to that. Morgan said during his introductory presser. Oh, no. Can you guys answer this question for me? When was the last time the Carolina Panthers logo was feared? Has it ever been feared? They did have the 15-1 season under Cam Newton where they made the Super Bowl and lost. But the Panthers are an expansion franchise from the mid-90s. And as a franchise, their entire tenure, it's been kind of more like that's kind of what they've been as a franchise. They've been like, they're like, okay, maybe every once in a while they can make the playoffs, but they have 0 Super Bowl titles. The only years that they made consecutive playoff appearances were when Cam Newton, Ron Rivera, they had a 3-year streak there. And the middle year of that 3-year streak, they were below 500 when they won their division and got in. So it's not necessarily a team with a lot of rich history. So that's just kind of like you're not taking over like even the Cowboys or the Steelers, or you could maybe even say like a team like the 49ers, or maybe you could even do something like that with the Bears, because way back the Bears had a good tradition, or the Packers. But this is the Carolina Panthers. It's an expansion team. Like imagine if the guys when they took over the Jaguars would say, and they're like, people are going to have to fear the Jaguars logo. I feel like this would be a way, way, way bigger story if it was a team like the Jaguars. But since it's the Panthers, I don't know if people are really picking up on this quote here. So we're going to read a little bit more down here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, even though it's not that long, just because I think maybe the last 2 or 3 little segments here, we really don't, it really doesn't give us much depth of what we're talking about. But here's a few more quotes here. Every time those players walk into the building, they're going to feel that intentionality. They're going to feel that about this team. This is about building a place for them to thrive, Canales said. In terms of what's next for the Panthers, Canales says he and Morgan must fill out the rest of their coaching staff, and added he expects defensive coordinator Ejiro Evera to remain with the team, calling him a huge piece of what we're trying to build here. Canales spoke in depth about his desire and his intention for the team to experience championship moments, something they plan to accomplish with their 2023 first-round pick, Bryce Young, at the helm. Basically, he just says here he wants Bryce Young to, we want to put Bryce Young in positions to succeed. We want him to do what he's great at. So that's basically kind of and we're going to implement those different kind of personnel and formations for Bryce Young. So that's basically kind of the conclusion to that here. So the reason I wanted to read that last little quote there is because, and I wanted to read that first quote because that's something that could very much be thrown back in your face as a team if you make a quote like that, like the logo needs to be feared or feared again. It's just a very kind of, foolish kind of quote, just knowing the Panthers' history. Um, and kind of reading a lot of these quotes here. And I know Canal has also said something too on the lines of like, hey, we want this is talking about Bryce Young. We want Bryce Young to be the best version of himself. And as someone that has, I'd say my main expertise with this show here and the amount of time that I've spent doing college football interviews is probably the most I've done on this show. It's mostly been the audio version before we got to the YouTube version of the show. Again, if you're liking this video right now, hit that subscribe button. Um, but a lot of the stuff here that I'm seeing, stuff about like building a culture and getting guys to buy in and getting all of this stuff where we're proud of our team and our logo and all of this stuff, all of that stuff is stuff that, as someone that has done, several interviews with people all over the country, all of the big conferences, talking about new coaching hires, those are stuff that you like to hear from college head coaches when they take over a program, where they're saying, we're going to build something here, we're going to get something for these guys all to believe in, and we're going to come together and we're going to unify as a team. That stuff that's very college like. And that's what very much concerns me with the Carolina Panthers here, because this all sounds very collegey. And you just can't, like, as we've seen over and over again, and I understand these two, the GM and the head coach, both come from NFL backgrounds. They don't come from college backgrounds, but we see it all the time where these college guys come into the NFL and they try to run their NFL team like it's a college team, or we even see it in other professional sports. So we see it in the NBA if a college coach comes in and flames out. It's like, oh, you're trying to run like we saw it most recently. I think the most recent NBA one was like John Beeline, where he went from Michigan to the Cavaliers, and that was an absolute disaster. I don't think he even made it one season. Most recently in the NFL, Urban Meyer. And two, previously for the Carolina Panthers, Matt Rule. And that's what very much concerns me right here with the Carolina Panthers and David Tepper, because David Tepper did hire Matt Rule before, and Matt Rule is a college coach. He's a college coach. He's a guy that gets people to buy in. He gets them to build a culture, and he sells it to, 18 to 19-year-olds. And that helps in college because you're trying to recruit people. In the NFL, you don't have to recruit people. You have to draft the right people that fit your team. And that's what concerns me here, because maybe David Tepper made these hires because of what these guys said in the interviews, not necessarily because of what they can do at the job. And that's what very much concerns me too, because especially like the head coaching candidate Canales. Now, the Panthers weren't necessarily the team that was like the hottest head coaching destination of anything. They're probably the least desirable head coaching destination. You'd maybe say maybe Tennessee could have been that, because Tennessee, isn't in position to get a franchise quarterback. And you could argue that Bryce Young's better than any Tennessee quarterback's option. But the Panthers were very, very low on that list of like, desirable, head coaching destinations. But Canales came in and he was not necessarily, if you ask me, now maybe this is on me for not following the NFL this closely, but if you asked me 3 weeks ago who was the Bucs offensive coordinator, I probably couldn't give you an answer. And you kind of hear all the stuff with him when he got hired, where it was like he comes into the interview and he blows everyone away with his like pitch and his, approach and, how likable he is. And I kind of think too that maybe David Tepper has a little bit of a thing for these guys that sell that kind of like, that culture pitch and that, taking pride in your team. And I get it, it works. And as someone that's talked to a bunch of people in college that is more of a college football fan than I'd say an NFL fan. Like my head coach, Matt Campbell, all the time, we said that quote about Canales saying, Bryce Young, become the best version of your coach. I've heard my head coach say something like that. I've heard dozens of college, maybe not dozens, but I've heard several head coaches of college teams being like, hey, we have to become the best version of ourselves. That's a thing that you pitch to college kids. That's not a thing that you pitch to like adult men. They don't necessarily buy that. They play for their contracts. Again, you can unify people. You can get a team together. But if you're a crappy team, you got to be a heck of a head coach to really unify these guys. And right now, the Carolina Panthers are a very crappy team. They don't have their first round pick. And they have an owner who has, as we've seen with his time, hasn't necessarily made good hires. And he's not necessarily the most patient guy in the world. And he's got a big pocketbook. He's got a big bank account. And I don't think he's, afraid to like, have to pay a buyout for a head coach over multiple years. So basically that's it, guys. That's kind of why I'm a little bit concerned here about the Carolina Panthers. This just seems very collegey with their kind of approach to this stuff. And if you're a team that doesn't have a lot of talent that's trying to build something, now again, maybe this, kind of approach can work because these guys don't have that college background, so they're not going to have that, kind of the way the college coaches, fail is that they're so like overpowering and they're control freaks and they try to like, really rip into guys, and you can't just do that in the same way in the NFL that you can college, because it's kind of like, in a way too, college can be, you lead by fear to a degree, fear of playing time, fear of, your scholar, all of these different things, getting your chance to eventually go to the NFL, all of that stuff. But in the NFL, guys are playing for contracts, they're grown men. And I'm just not sure if this kind of like, taking pride in your logo stuff is gonna work for the Carolina Panthers. So even though it's something that like you hear as a fan and you're like, yeah, let's go. And maybe Carolina Panthers fans are super hyped up about this. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm a little bit concerned right now for the Panthers, and this might just be slowly turning into the worst run franchise in the NFL right now. So there you have it, guys. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button. As I'm recording this, I'm at 99 subs. Be my 100th. Sorry, my video cut out there for a second. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, hit subscribe. If you like this video, hit that like button. Really helps us support the show. Leave a comment what you think about the Carolina's press conference there and kind of what you think of the hirings here and maybe the Panthers as a whole. I think it's pretty concerning. Just let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.